Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today I would like to discuss the Days Gone remaster. The latest in a long line of Sony remasters, as far as first party stuff is concerned, and I don't think it's the most egregious one. Personally, I'll say this right off the top. I love Days Gone. Oddly enough, this will sound really crazy, it was my first PS5 game. I bought it on PS4 for like $10. It was on an insane sale. I'd always wanted the game. Of course, when it first came out, it had all the issues with the glitches, which I think was the number one thing that really tore the game down, was the fact that it had like insane glitch issues when it first kicked off. And I think that really made it suffer. Like it has its issues that people didn't like in general, but I think the glitches and stuff really like gave it like the worst rap, more than people just being like, it's not like all this. I think it was really the glitches that did it more than anything else. But I got it on PS4. Like I said, I got it for $10, and I was like, you know what? I know I'm getting a PS5, and I'll just wait. And so I waited, and it was months before I ended up getting a PS5. But you know how the backlog is. I probably got 100 million games that I still need to play now. But I was like, all right, I'm gonna save it. And when I got my PS5, it was actually the very first game that I played and actually went all the way through. So Days Gone is like my first experience with the PS5, really. And I love that game. I thought it was super fun. Like, I couldn't believe that it got the rep that it got, where it was like, once again, outside of the glitches, where people were just like, it's not that really good. I thought it was great. I still remember the first time seeing that game when it was like, holy crap, this is the power of the PlayStation 4, and it's a boatload of zombies and stuff. I was like, I can't wait for this game to come out. And then it came out, and it did what it did. But it got better over time. They fixed the glitches and all that stuff. Then, of course, it got the PS5 version, or the PS4 version playing on the PS5. And it was like, all right, this is amazing. I absolutely love the game. It's upscaled to 4K, 60 frames per second. It looks absolutely amazing. And now we have the remaster, which I would assume is, I don't know, officially 4K. That's the only thing I can think of. It's just like Ghost of Tsushima, where it was upscaled 4K, and then you got the PS5 version, and it's actually 4K because they were capable of doing that because it was a PS4 game, and then they updated it to a PS5 game. Also, what they did with The Last of Us Part 2, remastered. It was a PS4 game, and then they updated it to a PS5 game, but it looked exactly the same. Like, it was, I assume, once again, that it was officially 4K and not just upscaled 4K. Although I think the PS5 version of, well, no, I don't remember, because I barely even tested out the PS5 version of Last of Us Part 2. I only even have that specifically for some photo mode stuff I was doing, so I barely bothered with that. But that game already looked good, and it barely looked different. Those are the comparisons. And now, of course, Days Gone is here. It already looked good, and those are the comparisons, where it's like, well, for $10, are you really getting that much graphically speaking? And something I was thinking about yesterday was, it's kind of like we're in the era of the remaster. And then right after that, I was like, every era has been the era of remasters. Since the PS3 came out, we've been getting nothing but remasters and collections. The difference now is that we're getting to a point where the leap in technology is way smaller, especially when you have games, and this is specifically for the three I've already mentioned, with Days Gone, Last of Us 2, and then Ghost of Tsushima. These were PS4 games that came out at like the end of the PS4, and then they gave them updated versions on the PS5 because we haven't had a backwards compatible system since the OG PS3. So when we went from PS2 to PS3, it was like, hey, here's the Devil May Cry collection, here's Sly Cooper, here's Jak and Daxter, all those games. They were HD collections, boosted up. I would assume they went up to 60 frames because they were PS2 up to PS3. And then PS4 comes out, and it's like, hey, here's, another big topic was when The Last of Us remake was coming out, and it's like, well, they just did the remaster, which I always hated that argument. Everybody was, missing the fact that The Last of Us remaster was already an 8-year-old game by the time the remake came out, but The Last of Us 2 had just come out, so I understand a bunch of people just played the remaster, but that's a different topic. But when that happened, that came out a year after the original version of The Last of Us, because the PS4 came out a year after The Last of Us first release. So it was like the PS4 comes out, boom, Last of Us remastered. A couple years in, then it was like, boom, here you go, the Uncharted collection in HD. I got that for $10 too, because that was on every freaking holiday. That was on sale for $10 at GameStop, and eventually I picked it up. I was like, I love the Uncharted games. I'll have them all in in my collection. I can't play the originals anyway because my PS3 actually died. So for me, it was actually valuable to pick up the collection. And now we're in the PS4 era where it's like, hey, here's Uncharted 4 remastered, and then also Uncharted Lost Legacy remastered, and you combine them together and it's full 4K. Unfortunately, that didn't get the same level of fidelity where it's like, hey, it's full 4K and 60 frames per second, I guess because it was a little bit older compared to, The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima, where they got their PS5 versions and it barely looked like there was any difference. Like, you can watch Digital Foundry videos on like the Ghost of Tsushima thing, and it was like the upscaled 4K looks almost identical to the actual 4K image from the director's cut or whatever they were doing for Ghost of Tsushima. And once again, leads right back to Days Gone. It looks the same, 100%. At this point, we're in an era of, if you get a remaster, you're paying, hopefully, for special features. Because there is one example that I do have that I thought people were crazy for when they're like, it looks exactly the same. And that's Horizon. And that's another franchise where I have to say, I actually like the Horizon games. I kind of love the Horizon games, in fact. I think the second one's even better than the first one. I know a lot of people disagree. If they do like both games, they tend to like the first one. It's kind of a Spider-Man thing. Where, I just like the second one more. So for me, I think that one, when they remade the first game, everyone's like, oh, it looks the same. I'm like, I don't know what crack people were smoking when that came out, but the remake of Horizon does not look the same as the original game. Like, those games are like worlds apart. But that's probably the only one where I was like, this feels like an actual update. And, like, as far as the Last of Us thing, that would have more to do with just timing versus, people claiming it looked the same. Although I think there were some people that said, I think, that's another thing when it comes to remakes. I think even the Dead Space remake, when that came out, one of my coworkers, he was talking to me about it, and he was like, man, I feel like it looks the same. And it's that, nostalgic imagery we have where it was like, oh, no, I was wrong. And he looked at the game, the original Dead Space versus the remake, and he was like, oh, no, this doesn't look the same. like we have that in our heads where it's like, it already looks good. And then it's like, look at this. Look at this sheet of paper, and then look at this cube. Like, you're on two different sets of dimensions. Like, they're very different things. So that's kind of how I felt when it came to the Horizon thing. But I don't feel that way for, when it comes to The Last of Us Part 2 or, the current Days Gone remaster, which is why the $10 there, I think, is valuable in terms of, hey, they added some extra features. Obviously, you have to decide if those features are worth it for you. I think, based on the little bit that I've actually played around with when it comes to The Last of Us Part 2, I do like the little roguelike mode that they added. I thought it was actually pretty fun. I have not beaten it. That's how little I played it. I think I only played it like 1 or 2 times, and I was mostly messing with photo mode. But I enjoyed that. As someone who uses photo mode, I like what they added for photo mode, even though it pisses me off because you can barely ever use the F and I things. For those of you that don't know what features I'm talking about, don't even worry about it, but they added some stuff from the first game into part 2, and it was like, oh, this would be great for photos. And like, I'm literally standing still, and it's like, yeah, you can't use that feature. And it's made me angrier than it's made, than it has given me value. So it is what it is. But it has a roguelike mode, which is fun, and that's great. And now with Days Gone coming out, it's like, okay, if I'm spending $10, I'm clearly not doing it for graphics. It's going from PS5 to PS5 Pro. Like, when that video came out, I was like, hey, look in the background of this effing, crowd sequence, and you can see a couple more pixels. That's what it's like when these PS4 games that already had PS5 upgrades get official PS5 versions. Like, there's hardly any difference. Like, there's extra shadows put on people. And it's like, I can technically see it because you change the shadows around. Sometimes the lighting is straight up different. And it's like, okay, like I said, Horizon did like an actual full redo of a lot of different systems and added things and all sorts of stuff as far as, just the environment and motion capturing. And then for The Last of Us Part 2 and now Days Gone, it's like, yeah, it's the PS5 version, but is it really remastered? Like, what is it remastered from outside of adding a couple more, pixels, like a tiny bit of extra definition? And that's really about it. And the main thing that I'm looking forward to seeing is whether or not it's actually 4K 60, because it's a PS5 version, but are we still at the point of being like, hey, it's PS5, but we're still having to choose 60 frames upscaled 4K, or is it going to be 4K 60? Because, like I said, when it comes to The Last of Us Part 2, I don't recall if they have the option there, but I do believe it's still there. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think you still have to choose, because I remember them doing that during the PS5 Pro thing, where it was like, hey, now with the PS5 Pro, you don't have to choose. It's, whatever the fidelity mode is, it is 60 frames in 4K. And it's like, cool, we're just now getting that for a PS4 game. That's fantastic. on the PS5 Pro. Like, think about, like, that's great. That's fantastic. That's, you know, those extra couple of pisser bits have allowed us to now officially do 4K 60. That's great. Upscaled 4K already looks absolutely amazing. You can barely tell the difference. So it's a weird thing when it comes to the actual graphics of it. And that's just the weird era that we're in, where they're doing these remasters, which, for one, I think it's partly to make money. Two, this is a huge topic when it specifically comes to Days Gone. People thinking that, hey, if they get enough sales for this, maybe we'll get Days Gone 2. I hope that we get a Days Gone 2. I love the game. When it finishes, it ends on a cliffhanger, and it was like, well, crap. I need a second game. And even when I played it, I didn't know it ended on a cliffhanger, and I already knew that it basically wasn't popular enough to have a sequel. It would have been announced by the time I was playing. And now it's like, okay, I would love to see it happen. Although I'll say this, I don't think that this is going to make a difference. And I hate saying that, but I don't think, unless this sold, like, you know, another 8 million copies or something effing ridiculous, which I don't see that happening. But unless it sold an insane amount of copies, I don't think it's really going to be relevant as to whether or not we end up getting a part 2. I hope that that's wrong, and I hope that, of course, it sells a lot and that does end up changing things. But also, the people that worked on the game are gone, so it's another element of like, well, if we got a sequel, would we get the sequel we were hoping for it to begin with? You know, there's a lot of different elements there. Like, would it even be close to the same concept as when the original writers were on the game, or, you know, on the original game? So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of up in the air when it comes to that. But I'm excited that it's coming back. I personally would say you should get the game. I'm sure Sony pulled it, and I'll say this, and this has nothing to do with remasters versus remakes. It's just Sony doing a real dick move. I was not happy with them when they did that Horizon move, where it was like, oh, the Horizon remaster is coming out, and then they bumped up the original version by like 20 or 30 bucks. And then it was like, well, if you pay for it now, it's $10 if you do this. But if you had to buy it all over again for the remake version, it was basically like 50 or 60 bucks. That was a dick move, and I was really upset with them for doing that to people that may not have experienced the game, because the game, much like Days Gone, Horizon, I think, was $20. There was some video I saw where they showed the actual like meter of how much the game cost, and it was, when it went down to $20, it was $20 for like 3 straight years, or more than that, because it was the first effing game. And then they kicked it up to like $35, $40, or however much they changed it to. It was like $50, and it was like, wow, that's a real dick move. So I don't know if that's already happened with Days Gone. That'd be a huge mistake, because let's face it, Horizon already has a sequel, and it's an established franchise, and I know how everybody acts like it's the industry plant. Who cares about this game? I personally do. I'm excited for the third game. We'll see what they do. You know, R.I.P. Silence. I can't think of his name. Lance Reddick unfortunately passed away, so he won't be in the next game. But I actually like Horizon. I think it's really good. I know they did, like, you know, it's because the guy who worked on it, for anyone that doesn't know this, the reason Horizon is like was so insanely pushed was because, God, was it Herman Holst? It was either him or someone else, and sorry if it wasn't Herman Holst, but it was one of the people who's basically like in the lead position at Sony. He used to work at Guerrilla Games, and he was a part of making Horizon, and that's a big part of why it got pushed so hard. Personally, like I said, I actually love the games. I think the second one is a huge improvement upon the first, which was already really fun. But, you know, that's kind of why it's like, it's the first VR, you know, PSVR 2 game. It's why it got a Lego game. It's why they're using that as one of the first party games that's going to end up getting a movie or a TV show or whatever. I don't remember. I think that got canceled, actually. So they were going to do that, and, you know, that's why we have the remastered. It was supposed to be coming out with a movie/show announcement, much like The Last of Us Part 1 coming out because of the TV show. So, you know, everything that they do is just marketing stuff to match with something else they're doing. I don't know if they're doing anything with Days Gone, so I'm insanely shocked that even got a remaster. I remember when the rumors came out, and then the day after that rumor came out, it ended up being the Horizon remaster, and I was like, oh, maybe people were wrong. And that was like, at whatever the state of play before this very last one was, where obviously we got the Days Gone remaster, was the Horizon remaster. So that was at some point last year. And I was like, oh, I guess that was a wrong rumor, because why in the world would they have a Days Gone remaster? I love the game, but they already said that the game just wasn't getting a sequel. Like, it just didn't happen. Even though it sold a decent amount of money, or a decent amount of copies, it already wasn't getting anything. So I'm like, it would be weird for it to even have a sequel, or have a remaster. But here we are. We have a remaster. We have extra modes, or an extra mode, I should say. I don't know. I'm not going to count permadeath as an extra mode. If we're being totally honest, like, it's a nice feature, but I'm not going to be like, that's a whole new mode. It's permadeath. It's just added on there. But, they have the arcade mode that they added, which, by the way, here's something. Just as a very random thing for anyone that's even made it this far into the video, Days Gone has a Crazy Taxi arcade mode, and I'm dead serious. It is an extra mode that you get after you beat the game. It is straight up Crazy Taxi. I'm dead serious. Like, it blew my mind. I was like, this is Crazy Taxi. Like, you're playing it, and you're not driving a taxi, you're driving like a little golf cart, but you're picking up people and driving them around, and you can like hit the zombies along the way as you drive them to different areas, and music plays. I'm like, they literally made a Crazy Taxi mini game inside of their game. And it was insane. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, they have like racetracks, and then they have like a little kind of like a survival mode where you go through like waves. So I think it'll be different than the horde situation that they're adding now. But they had multiple modes, and one of them was straight up a Crazy Taxi minigame. And it's insane. And it's fun too, because it plays like Crazy Taxi, except there's a couple of zombies. Like, you barely even deal with the zombies. You can just hit them, but they barely actually interact with you. It's straight up Crazy Taxi. So just wanted to randomly throw that in there, because I know so many people didn't play this game that so many people have no idea that was in there. But yeah, so there's a Crazy Taxi mini game inside of Days Gone, for those of you that are not aware of that. Just a random thing to enjoy in that game. But I love the game. I love the driving. I love the combat. I actually thought the story was interesting. It's a really crazy story, and just, zombie apocalypse stuff. There's definitely some issues with the story, and, hey, I saw this scene, and then like 3 hours later, they just play the scene again. It does happen. They have some weird things that they do, whereas like, hey, come back, you got to do this thing, and then a cutscene plays, and that's like the whole mission. I like that, because it's just like, here's like 3,000 points for doing nothing but coming back. But it's also weird, because it's like, why didn't they just design that as a radio call? That's super weird. So it has its issues. I still think it's an amazing game. I think it's super fun. As someone who does use photo mode, I'm actually excited, because some of or at least two of the features they added I really like. One of them was logos, and I don't care about that, but they added time of day settings, which is great. And they added they're going to be adding a 3-point lighting system. So I'm kind of hyped for that. I'm very excited to see that play out, and I'm hoping that if it does actually carry my save file over, that I can just do like New Game Plus, and then I'll be great, and I'll have everything updated and all that, and then I'll be super happy with it. So I want the game to succeed. I want people to experience the game, because I think it's a great game. But if it does somehow have any relevance towards a potential sequel, even though I think this is more just a company thing, like pretty much all the remasters / remakes that have come out, whereas like, hey, it's a lot easier to do like a remaster, or in some ways it's not even the main company. I think that's another big thing that people constantly say, where it's like, they're wasting all this time and all this money. It does not cost as much time or money as you might anticipate when they do those remakes / remasters. And sometimes it's not even the main company. Like, it's not them. It's not always Naughty Dog that actually did. I think they probably did all of theirs, but I don't think it was Guerrilla Games that actually did the Horizon remake. I think it was a different company that did that, and I would assume whatever company Ben Studio, I do think they did their own as far as the remaster for Days Gone, but it doesn't take away as much as people keep thinking it does, where it's like, man, they're wasting all this time and money. A lot of times it's really like the B, possibly even like C team in a sense, that's doing these remasters. It takes way less time and money than you think compared to them working on a brand new game. Like, Naughty Dog actually is a great example. They put out a remake of the first game and a remaster of the second game, which really was just, the new mode and like adding some photo mode features, not really graphically stuff, but a remake of the first game and a remaster of 2. And then last year we just got the announcement of a brand new game that they've been working on for like the last 3 years. So it's not like the whole company is like, oh my God, let's all do this remaster. It's honestly maybe like 25% of the company is really working on these remasters / remakes. Certain features are different than others. Obviously, The Last of Us 1 remake probably took more people versus The Last of Us 2 remastered. Horizon remake probably took quite a bit more than, I didn't even bring this one up, Spider-Man remastered. That I think was the most egregious one, but it was like one of the first ones, so it doesn't get talked about as much. I think, as time goes on, the more and more that we get, the worse and worse people will feel about more remakes, and especially remasters more than remakes. But that I always thought was the most egregious one, because that literally was like a 2-year difference. Like Days Gone, people are like, oh, it's been like 5 years. Like, yeah, but it's been 5 years. And also for a game that probably could use to boost in sales and help that company make whatever they're trying to make next, that's really probably why they did this. That's the last big game they had. And unless they decide to throw out like, hey, Siphon Filter Remastered, which you can kind of get with the PS Plus premium stuff now. I don't know if it's remastered, but that's where the Siphon Filter games are. This was pretty much their only option anyway to get like just a little boost in revenue. And then they use like I said, if even 25% of their team to throw this one out there for people. So it funds their next game. It probably won't be funding, unfortunately, a Days Gone 2. I would love for that to be the case, but that's just how it is. Like these remakes and remasters aren't always going towards the sequel. It's sometimes just going towards whatever's next. Like a remaster for The Last of Us Part 2 and a remake of Part 1, that's going towards the new game, which I, for the life of me, cannot remember the name of right now, but I'm excited for that game. But that's what that funding is going towards. And then they have a portion of the team doing that work, and then we see what happens. So we'll see what happens with Ben's studio. I'm gonna pick it up eventually. I'll be honest, like the only reason I even got The Last of Us Part 2 is because of a video I'm working on. But Horizon I haven't picked up yet. The Uncharted games I haven't picked up yet. And, you know, we'll see what ends up happening. But I'm excited for Days Gone, mostly because I just like the game in general. But I would love to know your thoughts on them doing this Days Gone remaster. Like, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? If you haven't played the game, I think it's worth getting. That's just my personal opinion because I actually enjoyed the game. But obviously everybody's different. Look up some reviews, look up what people say about it. You'll probably see the concerns I mentioned as far as just like some of the weird choices when it comes to that game. But overall, I think they did a pretty good job with it. And personally, I actually love that game. I thought it was fantastic. I was super happy having it as my, technically speaking, first PS5 game. So now that we're at the point of it being an official PS5 game, I think it'll be worth picking up. That's my thoughts on it. I say check it out. I don't know what the price is. Like I said, Sony probably did some BS and bumped it up, but hopefully they didn't do like an insane thing. I'm sure it's not on sale anyway, but you know, 40, 50 bucks. Hopefully that's all it costs. It should be 40 bucks just because how old the game is. But once again, with the move they pulled with Horizon, who the F knows? But in general, I'd like to know your thoughts on them doing this remaster. Like I said, for me personally, I hope a lot of people play it. Even if it doesn't get us a sequel, hopefully a lot more people just experience it, because I do think it was kind of hit with an unfair, well, I can't say it was unfair. It was all the glitches that did it, and I think that kind of messed it up. So it wasn't hit with necessarily an unfair shake, but a lot of people didn't really dive deeper into seeing the mechanics of it. And so it was just kind of hit with like, well, I don't like this and I don't like that. And that was pretty much how it was seen by a lot of people. So I say check it out personally. I thought the game was fantastic. But those are my thoughts on it. Like I said, we'd love to know your thoughts on all things remaster. Like all the remasters that we've had, what is going to be the next remaster? Honestly, like there's got to be another one, but I can't think of what else it could be. Like, I don't know if Housemarque is going to be like, boom, Returnal remastered before Sorrows comes out. I don't see that happening, but I also wouldn't have seen a Horizon remake coming or a Last of Us 2 remaster coming. I wouldn't have seen the remake coming either, but that at least made a lot of sense to me because it was a huge upgrade. But, and Horizon was, on my personal opinion, because those games do not look the same, the original versus the remake, do not look the same. People smoke and crack when they say that. But The Last of Us Part 2 looks the same. Days Gone looks the same. But I think they're both good games, and if you don't have the extra stuff, they're worth picking up. I think personally. We don't even have to go into the Last of Us stuff, but I like that game. I like Days Gone. I say pick it up. But want to know your thoughts, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.